today's interview, I'll be talking to someone you might have not have heard of, but very likely you've heard of his work. From learning the hard way and beginning to mod for the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, he released a mod where you could flirt with a woman and mutually be challenged for a duel in the form of sword fights. This was one of the many encounters in the Oblivion mod, the Duelists, but that mod's popularity paled next to his next project, New Vegas Bounties.
I only have one question. Are you willing to kill people for money? Yes or no?
New Vegas Bounties was one of the first quest mods released for New Vegas, and what amounted to simply shooting bounties and collecting rewards caught the imagination of thousands, and remains one of the most popular mods ever for New Vegas. From hunting down Freddy Krueger and Tony Montana for bottle caps, its sequel, New Vegas Bounties 2, was a much larger and deeper affair.
Others, are you? Something is driving you. It doesn't matter if it's greed, if it's hate, or a sense of justice. You just hold on to it, whatever it is. Soon, you're gonna need it.
That reached the popularity of its predecessor. Now, more than a year later, after releasing the Sword of Sigdon for Skyrim, Someguy2000 joins me to talk about his latest project, The Inheritance, a mod for Fallout New Vegas, and an even larger project on the horizon. But far from disposing of outlaws in some sleepy quarter of the Mojave, me and Someguy meet in the battlefields of Europe in one of his favourite games, Rome Total War. Who are you?
My name is James, James Weatherly. I also know, I'm known as Someguy2000 on the Nexus forums. I've created several Elder Scrolls and Fallout New Vegas quest mods. Most players have probably played New Vegas Bounties 1 and 2. Those are the main mods that I'm known for. Like I said, I make a few small Elder Scrolls mods. Hopefully make some more in the future, but that's primarily what I'm known for.
It's been a while since you've made a mod for Fallout New Vegas. What previous work is The Inheritance most like?
Yeah, it's basically in the same fashion as New Vegas Bounties 1 in that you get the message and the quest starts, and that is the quest. There are no real side quests, at least not that I'm going to mention. I won't rule them out entirely, but there's really only one quest, and it's multifarious with basically key points where you make choices, and those can alter the ending. And I've tried to go from the formula of New Vegas Bounties 1, but with many more dialogue choices and much more freedom of choice in dealing with enemies and dialogue and other problems and other challenges that the player will come across within the course of the mod. So, I mean, that's basically the formula. It was something I cooked up just one weekend by accident when I was working on scripting for another mod, and it just sort of happened, and that's it.
So tell us what happens in The Inheritance.
Yeah, it's you're by sheer accident, the courier is enlisted or is hired to deliver a package, and as seems to happen with the courier and deliveries, it's not just a normal delivery mission. You deliver a package to a man named Bradley, who's a mercenary in Westside, and he discovers that there's much more to the letter than either one of you had anticipated, and it sets Bradley and you and the courier on basically a series of adventures and a series that involve exploration and combat, and going to places that really had not expected, and finding things that will kind of set in motion a chain of events and bring in other factions as well that are also competing for this inheritance. That is the focus of your. That's basically what you're going after, is this inheritance, and you'll get the details of it when you play the mod.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Bradley?
Yeah, Bradley is kind of something I had in mind after making Doc Friday for New Vegas Bounties 2, where I had started with the idea of a companion, but I wasn't terribly confident in my companion making abilities, and Doc Friday was fun. I love the character, I love the voice acting, but he is a touch incomplete, I think. And for Bradley, I wanted to make sure that he felt like a vanilla companion when the player plays the game. so that way it doesn't break immersion. And that's important for me, is not breaking immersion. I think players really value that. So, you know, I'll have to wait to see what the feedback is like, but I'm confident that the end result is going to be a pretty enjoyable and pretty believable companion, but nothing cartoonish or outlandish. He'll still fit within Fallout, and I think players will get a kick out of some of the twists and some of the dialogue there. And I haven't cast him yet as a voice actor, or I haven't cast him yet with a voice actor, but I'm going to be doing that soon.
And you're actually looking for voice actors, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be posting voice roles. I plan on doing it tomorrow. I've still got to write up some notes. I have a lot of work to do on that end tomorrow, but I'm hoping to get that done. I'm going to post. One of the roles is already filled, but there should be at least. I'll have to go back on my notes now with the added encounters. I think there may be another 9 or 10 roles that I'll have to fill, and other than that, that's about it. I mean, I'll have to get the voice acting together, get some voice actors, and implement the actual dialogue and lip syncing. But once that's done, I should be able to release the mod. Hopefully, my goal is to release it before the end of the month. I'd originally said November 13th, but I'm not going to rush it out. Rush out an incomplete mod. I want to make sure it's complete and that it's polished in order for the players to get the best experience possible from it.
Can you tell us who you might be looking for?
Oh, as far as voice actors?
Yes. For example, what kind of voice actor are you looking for Bradley?
I mean, Bradley's tough. I mean, if I had to say there's one quality about him, he's tough. He had a really tough upbringing. He's based on some people I've known in my life. Clearly not me personally. I didn't have a terribly tough upbringing, but he has, and he has a pretty cynical worldview. He's about 40, but he's in really good shape because he did a lot of time in the military, takes good care of himself, and but he has a pretty cynical view of people, and he probably, when I was writing up his bio, I think the one thing he values, other than maybe kind of a real vague sense of honor, that surrounds, people's character, is money. I mean, he really values money because he grew up so poor and so destitute, and that's a factor in this mod. And then the narrative is Bradley's emphasis and the prioritization of money in his life, in his worldview. And the player will get to interact with him and influence that on some level through dialogue. That's something I've tried to work in, is influencing Bradley through dialogue. On a limited level. This is not a big mod, and it's not going to be on the scale of a vanilla companion. But you'll still get to have some influence there, and hopefully some colorful moments. You know me, I'm going to write. For better or for worse, the dialogue's going to be pretty wild. So I think your players will, if nothing else, it will be different than anything they've played as far as companions go. So I look forward to that. And as far as the casting, I mean, American accent, neutral male, probably late 30s, early 40s-ish. I mean, he's a healthy guy, so it doesn't. And as far as the age, once you pass a certain threshold, and with a good voice actor, they can make their voice sound any age they need it to.
Is there a naivety to him?
On some level. It's more of a... I don't know if it's naivety. It's so much as distrust. And yeah, maybe he does have a certain recklessness to him. I don't know about naivety, but he does have a youthful recklessness that he has, and I think that I'm interested to see if the voice actor can capture that.
And Bradley is a big part of this mod.
Yeah, quite a bit. And they will have and they won't be stuck with him. I mean, when they advance the plot, they will need Bradley in the company, and they'll be reminded of that. But if they want to stop, they can, for whatever, they can dismiss him and then continue the quest later on. They're free to do that. As for voice acting, I think that I'm going to be interested to see how some of those other roles carry out, because we've got a pretty wide range. We've got an elderly voice role, and there are, let's see, there's kind of a middle-aged voice role, and I'm looking for a James Gandolfini type of voice. If that, kind of a Tony Soprano type of vibe. And I'll be interested to see if someone is up to that. Also, there'll be, let me see here. There's a couple others. There's, kind of your stereotypical gangsters. There's also a guy from West Side. Maybe even, right now, the child voice actor, or the child role is not voiced, but that could change, depending on what comes up. But right now, that's probably going to remain unvoiced.
Could a woman play that role?
That is possible. But I elected to leave it alone. But who knows? I think our generals are meeting there.
It's alright, I'll just send my elephants to help my general out.
Oh Lord, then I don't want to be there for that rodeo. Elephants are tough, man. There's one thing I remember we were talking about Age of Empires 2 before the interview. That's my enduring memory, is the Persian elephants that I despise so much. But now, getting back to, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head all those voice roles, but we'll go through it. I'm going to outline it much in the fashion of New Vegas Bounties 2. What I'll do is create a list for the players, and you can go through. You'll see the number of lines. You'll see the type of role, and basically you'll be able to pick and choose which roles you're interested in, and then make a submission. For some of the smaller roles, I'm more open. I mean, there are literally roles that are just a handful of lines, and I'm not going to be as picky. I mean, my only thing that I expect from any submission is audio quality. You don't have to be a great voice actor per se, especially for really simple monosyllabic statements, of which there are a few. But for the major roles, yes, I will be looking for quality, because after New Vegas Bounties, I know players are going to be expecting something similar in regards to the voice acting ability. So I want to try to meet that expectation as much as possible. And I know there are a number of fantastic voice actors in the community, and many of them have contacted me over the past few months, willing to offer help for a number of projects, not just this one, for any project for that matter. And I'm going to be seeking them out, in addition to players or community members that will make submissions on the forums. And I'm really looking forward to putting this together. I had a lot of fun getting the voice acting together for New Vegas Bounties 2, and this is much smaller, but I think it's still going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it.
So, to tell people the kind of length we're looking at here, if New Vegas Bounties 2 was like a novel, Inheritance would be like a short story?
Yes, that's it. It is a short story. If it's if New Vegas Bounties 2 is a novel, then or a novella, then this is definitely a short story by any measure. It's in most playthroughs, it takes me about, and again, from the designer standpoint, the designer is going to play it faster than the player. Obviously, I usually takes me about an hour and 15 minutes. So for most players, I imagine it'll be about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on their playing style. There are players that tend to be reflective and pace themselves very slowly and want to look at every nook and cranny and every note. And I try to throw little nuggets in there because I appreciate that type of gameplay, and I do that a lot. And so there are there's definitely the beaten path, and then there's the other, which the player can do, and there will be rewards if you go off the beaten path. I do try to make that possible for players.
But Inheritance is pretty small compared to what you've got planned on the horizon.
Oh yeah, Siege of Firebase Zulu is it's War and Peace, man. Compared to anything I've made, it just dwarfs. Because you've played the alpha, I think, or at least taken a look at it. I don't know if it was even functional, but I mean, just the introductory quest for the Siege of Firebase Zulu is on scale with the entire amount, with all the content in the Inheritance, and it's a separate world space. It's a separate adventure. It's different from anything I've done before, and probably different than most any other quest or quest mod out there in several respects. It is not a Western. It really, I guess War and Peace probably is the most apt comparison. It's a grand struggle that the player takes part in and will irrevocably alter through their actions. The player will they will serve as what they think is going to be a simple missionary job, just working as a sentry will in fact be will turn into this incredible struggle that they will have a huge hand in. They get sent to this distant firebase, which is out in the fringes of NCR territory in western Arizona, and it's a strategic overlook. And the reason Firebase Zulu is there in the first place is because of silver mines just to the west that the NCR wants to protect. And really, there's and the only reason the Legion is going after it is strictly to save face, because they had tried to take it a few years earlier and lost it. And it's the way I wrote it is that it was overshadowed by the first Battle of Hoover Dam in scale and in publicity by both sides, because the NCR wanted to focus attention on the Battle of Hoover Dam because they had such terrible losses as Zulu, whereas the Legion didn't even want to acknowledge that they had lost it and lost the Battle of Hoover Dam. And so they're going to try to retake it. The NCR has neglected it, and so they send the courier there to try to patch things up, get the defenses ready, improve morale. And the courier is going to find the place has just as many problems within the perimeter as it does outside, because there are a lot of conflicts. As within the military, there's a lot of conflicts within the camp, between personalities, between different ranks, and the player is going to have a lot of choice in how they deal with those problems. And all their decisions will feed into the battle and how things play out in terms of the difficulty and the outcome for individual combatants. That's one thing I've tried to learn from I want to take from the DLCs, is that there's a clear beginning, middle, and end to this, and the end will you'll be able to find out just the extent that you influence these personalities and the play and Zulu itself. And I'm really excited because it's big, it is ambitious, it's bigger than anything I've made. But the feedback from the community thus far has been really positive, really enthusiastic, and that just emboldens me and really excites me in making this, because I feel like warfare is something that gets glossed over in a lot of video games, especially
games like Call of Duty and Medal of Honor.
I mean, everybody's gonna. A lot of RPG, and I'm one of them. They're gonna quickly slander the Call of Duty, the Medal of Honor, all these first-person shooters that are ready. And my nephews love them. They play the hell out of them, and I still play them too, multiplayer. I'll go over there and play them on the console. But to me, that's not war, and that's not the military. That's just a cartoon. And I know this is still a game, and I know it's just a mod, but I want to take some of my experiences and my personal opinions, and I want to infuse them into this. I know they say you bleed on the page, and that's what I'm going to try to do. And who knows, it could just end up, being, just something outrageous, but I'm going to put everything I have into it. And I feel like I've done that in past mods, but even more so than this. This is it's kind of a personal project. So I feel very strongly about it, about creating a humanized vision of the military. And that's not to say there aren't games that do that. It's just I don't feel like they're prominent. And I think Fallout, more than any more than most IPs and most settings, gives a really, at least Fallout New Vegas gives a really intriguing look at war. As they're the famous quote, war never changes. But that's part of it, is that you look at the NCR, you look at the Legion, there are people on both sides that are these rounded characters that are caught in this massive event, and they're just trying to survive. And they all have different motivations, and but they're all caught in this maelstrom and trying to survive. And I think that's a big theme in the Siege of Firebase Zulu, is showing, taking away the political, grand political statements, and just there we go.
The enemy general is dead. These men
there's
know
my
their
military
doom
prowess right there.
approaches.
But
How did I kill you?
I think you fragged him. So you hit him with a giant robot. If you have a trebuchet or something out there in the middle of.
Did you see what killed him?
I don't know. He seemed to fall off his horse. Maybe I don't know. Maybe his appendix ruptured or something. seems to be having a bad
Somewhat
day,
of a
but
poetic way to go.
there you go. That's right. That's right. Then here I am talking about lofty themes and a cannonball or whatever kills my general. So
Obviously, the name Firebase Zulu and the situation you're describing sounds a lot like the film Zulu. Was that a direct inspiration?
yeah. No. The film, yeah, it's not terribly historical, and it is kind of a glossy view of the Battle of Rorke's Drift, which to credit, Rorke's Drift is an incredible example for a small unit defending a fixed position against a much larger enemy numerically. And they did an incredible job. I mean, I know some historians will disagree and will nitpick, but overall, the defense of Rorke's Drift is agreed by many observers to be a fine example of discipline and tactics and firepower in the face of an overwhelming number of enemies. And that basis, even though that's happened many times in history, that was the movie was probably the thing that got the ball rolling. I just said, I said Zulu, and I said, well, I'll just call it Firebase Zulu, and it'll be kind of inspired by Rorke's Drift, and that is the basis. Now, the film is something I saw as a kid, and it left a strong impression on me, and I was, just entranced, and I did a lot of research on the Second Boer War as well after that, but the actual battle will play into this, as well as a lot of books that I read growing up and even recently. As a kid, I grew up in a pretty sheltered home, and I didn't have access to a lot of the films and things that I reference now. I didn't get to see those until later, but I did have access to a lot of books, and my dad had a lot of Vietnam books around, and so if I couldn't see gore and violence, sex, and all that stuff on TV, I would read it in these old war books, and that definitely plays into that. Like any number. God, there's a ton of Vietnam books that I can, Rumor of War, Fields of Fire, The Bridge at Dong Ha. There are a ton of these, ton of stories, incredible stories that really happen that don't get told, and or at least don't get depicted in a visual medium. And I wanted to at least touch on some of those, and even if it's in a fairly trivial way, I want to try to show those in the Siege of Firebase Zulu. And to me, the war between the NCR and the Legion it reminds me at times of, say, the United States and the Viet Cong, or the British and the Zulus. Any number, it's an irregular force, and they thrive on guerrilla tactics, and that's not unlike the Viet Cong, as they infiltrated just about every way. The VC infiltrated just about every part of the South Korean government, intelligence apparatus, and military. And with that said, there's I wanted to capture that spirit, but at the same time humanize the Legion more. I think that they get. And I don't think that was Obsidian's. Obsidian had much grander plans for New Vegas, and they only got to show a piece of what they had in mind for the Legion, I believe. But that view, unfortunately, is at times somewhat simplistic and not necessarily fair. And I think that a big challenge when you create this kind of conflict is not to have a two-dimensional enemy. I don't want this to be a propaganda film for the NCR. That's absolutely not what this is. And I know that the player can get that in other experiences. That's not what this is. The NCR in this mod is the NCR you find in New Vegas, but probably a little bit more magnified. At least some of the flaws and the strengths are magnified in this, and you'll see that in the characters, in the actions of those characters. But the Legion, from the outset, this was the strength, the heart of this mod is the antagonist, is Mark Ellis, the Legion Tribune, and he has his own agenda, but he is a lifelong product of the Legion. He was born into it. He was not born a slave. He was born into it. He developed in the Legion. He was kind of a prodigy. He is kind of the paradigm for success, or for everything that the Legion strives for. In physical excellence, intellectual excellence, and he was a Centurion's son, and he had every reason to succeed. And in spite of that, he still failed at Zulu a few years earlier, and he suffered terribly for it. And if not for the way I wrote it is that if not for Hoover Dam, Marcellus probably would have been killed. But the fact is, they did not want to kill Marcellus and Joshua Graham simultaneously because the battle was so close together, and Caesar couldn't afford to lose both of them simultaneously, and so he gave Marcellus a chance, under oath, to retake Firebase Zulu in 2 years. And granted, he was scourged and he lost one eye in the process. He had one of his eyes gouged out as punishment. But he took an oath to retake the base, and he's going to retake it, and the player is going to be there to face him. And he is different from any other Legion character they've interacted with. I can promise you that. One of the things I loved talking with Caesar in the game, and the dialogues, getting his views. But I always thought, as a lot of other NPCs discuss in Fallout, what happens when Caesar dies? He is inevitably going to die. That's not some grand spoiler. I mean, he's an old man anyways. He's going to croak, and then what happens? I mean, the Legion itself is a cult of personality built around Caesar. And just like with the Roman Empire, that's brittle and fragile when the main cog dies. So with any other totalitarian empire that's built around one that's a dictatorship, when they die, if there's not a clear line of succession. And even if there is a clear line of succession, things can still go awry. And when that happens, you've got internecine warfare. And I think you already see that referenced by some of the dialogue with Wolpes and Colta when he talks about the saving Caesar or not saving Caesar. He's very relieved that Caesar's saved because he's worried about the infighting if Lannius takes over. And that intrigued me a lot. I said, well, who else could challenge to take control of the Legion potentially? And Marcellus is one of those guys. He has a strong stake in the Legion, and he has his own agenda. And a lot of that depends on Firebase Zulu and capturing Firebase Zulu and doing it in a timely and efficient manner. He has a lot at stake. And especially if Caesar is out of the picture, you will get to see, you'll through dialogue with him, you'll get to find out just what his ambition is and how different his view is for the Legion than, say, Lannius. Because he has, as you can find out, he has a background with Lannius. They have a history, and it is very acrimonious. And he is, let's just say he's from a very different background. Lannius grew up in a tribe. He was absorbed. He doesn't like the Legion. He hates the Legion. And Caesar thrives. That's why one of the reasons Caesar says that's one of the reasons I think he has no qualms about sacrificing men. Marcellus takes a different approach. He grew up in the Legion. He actually knows the history. Because of his background, his father being a Centurion, he was able to have a strong education, and because he had a slave from the followers. I'm writing in several elements that allow and explain his education, but he has as good, if not a better grasp of Roman history than Caesar, and his ultimate goal is to make a republic instead of a empire, something that will endure. Because an empire, his argument is that, and his view of it is that the empire it could only consolidate and contract. It could never expand. It could only recede. It was never going to have the vitality of the republic. And he sees that, and also the dictatorship, he sees it as a weakness. And he believes that only a republic, granted a republic that is patriarchal and depends on slavery, he has no qualms. He believes that those are integral to the success of rebuilding the post-apocalyptic wasteland. However distasteful they are, he certainly doesn't relish these elements or these things, but to him they're a necessary evil. But he believes probably in something that's closer to an oligarchy, a de facto oligarchy. That in many times that's what the Roman Republic was, in fact, an oligarchy. Not nearly as democratic as, say, Athens or something like that, but still, it's much more. He wants citizens, not subjects, because there's a huge question mark about what happens in Arizona now. We don't even know. And Jay Sawyer's talked about that on Formspring and whatnot. What is Arizona like? If you go there, who are the citizens? And he says they're not citizens. They are people who live there and trade, and they're essentially subjects. I don't think he used that word specifically, but that's more or less what they are. They're subjects who live under the Roman, who live under the Legion's rule. They are subject to the however arbitrary the dictates of the Legion. They have to bend to them, and I think that has no permanency. That's not built to last at all. That is at best just a passing military dictatorship with some fascistic elements, and and it's also technologically backward. And Marcellus takes a very different view to technology. He certainly does not agree with Caesar on the use of technology, and that's also something that the player is going to have to deal with, because Marcellus's army, especially again, if Caesar is not in the picture, it's going to be much different than the Legion that in some respects. It's going to be different than the Legion that they're used to. There's going to be some curveballs because Marcellus doesn't adhere to the same rules that Caesar or Lanius necessarily do, and he takes a different tactical approach, and again, his priorities are not the same, and his approach are not the same. Certainly, as Lanius. Lanius is kind of a General Zhukov type. He will, he has absolutely no regard for the lives of his men whatsoever. And he's just, I really don't like Lanius. I know I've made that clear in the forums. It's just hard for me to get behind Lanius at any point, and I've never, on all the role-playing that I've done, I've never been able to get behind the Legion that much. And really, there's not that many sympathetic characters in the Legion. I always thought that was a weakness. And Marcellus is going to have one thing I want. I'm going to, more than with any character I'm providing to this date, I'm going to make sure he has some of the most compelling and lively dialogue that you're going to get with an antagonist in any of my mods. Because most of my mods, they're westerns. You go and you say, it's any, there are any variants of, go fuck yourself, and then you're going to shoot it out, in the street. It's fucking high noon in the street, and that's basically, and that's kind of the approach I've taken to a lot of antagonists, because it's a western for the Bounty series, and I have no regrets about that. And I'm pretty pleased with that. That's because that's what my goal was, and that's not what Zulu is. Zulu is, you're going to be dealing with two desperate sides. One side has to face, overwhelming odds from a very determined enemy, and the player will get to choose. I am determined to give that choice to players, which side they're going to go with some nuance as well. There will be diplomatic options. I know I've gotten requests from pacifistic players, or players who play with pacifist role players, who want that option on the table, and there will be more of that than with any other mod. Players will be able to explore strictly diplomatic options, but the results aren't always what you expect, and I know a lot of times speech checks will get you the best possible outcome in a lot of situations in Fallout, and that won't necessarily be the case here, unfortunately. In this kind of situation, sometimes the best possible outcome is decided by force of arms, as awful as it is. And there is no perfect outcome by any means. And you can still do, and like in real war, you can do everything right, and things can still go wrong. There are going to be variables and things that are beyond your control that won't necessarily turn out right. And that's part of war.
And like all the DLCs we've had for Fallout New Vegas so far, considering Firebase Zulu is such a big mod, what would be the hook for the players to get into it, as it were?
It's going to be initially because in DLCs, what we've had so far is when you go to these outside world spaces, you're there. And for me, I want to give the player the experience of actually traveling to this place, and it's a perilous route, and they will get to experience that. Right out the gate, it's going to be they're going to be out of their comfort zone. They're going to be in danger, and they will have to make a kind of the road less traveled to Firebase Zulu. And once they get there, and it's not an easy path, once they get there, then they're immediately thrust into kind of not just actions, quests surrounding the outside the base that involve action. Going out, finding an enemy sniper who is harassing the camp. That's the first thing you're going to do. You get there and you find out that the camp is demoralized because this guy is sniping officers, he's sniping enlisted men, he's killing, the ability to control territory outside the perimeter. And so the commander, who's an interesting guy, he's going to assign you to go out and kill the sniper. And it's kind of funny how it plays out. But there are a lot of interesting characters within the camp, and there's a lot of you're going to have a lot of influence over several of these characters. A few of them you'll have a lot of, a remarkable amount of influence in how they, in how they come out at the end and which path they take. But for a number of them, you'll have some moderate influence because just sheer scale of the mod. But you will have a variety of side quests as well for specific individuals. That like there's one guy that's just a model soldier, and you find out that he has some shall we say rather he's done some things in the past that were quite unbecoming for an NCR soldier in good standing, and you're going to have a direct hand and influence in how that plays out and how you handle it and how you interact with that character. And of course, a few people may recall Walken from New Vegas Bounties 2, who was kind of a comedy.
For the viewers not aware of
Walken,
he was the guy who called Mr. House a retard, yes.
Right? I might have been inebriated when I wrote that and voiced it. What can I say? And let me just say, no one identified Walken as an influence. There's a book called. A very fascinating book about Texas Rangers that's called, I believe the title is One Ranger, and there's a real guy named Walken that was a ranger in West Texas. Crazy book, a lot of stories, and the name alone is based on the guy. The guy is not some kind of raging, opinionated drunk, but that's what Walken in New Vegas Bounties 2 is. His cousin is in Firebase Zulu. He is a ranger. His name is Josie, and he has many more opinions than Walken. And the player will he'll actually be a quest giver for several quests. And because players like Walken so much, I said, all right, I'll try to continue the spirit of Walken with Josie. And so you'll get exposure to him. And he's interesting, but he has, the player can influence him as well. It's not just going to be some joke machine that you go and banter with periodically. There's actually a little bit of depth there in terms of his background and how you can influence him. And there are two rangers at the base. The other one is Watson. He's very interesting. I really, really like his character. He's a ghoul ranger. He's a very quiet guy, and I think there's a lot of depth there. There's an interesting side quest with him that the players can really get behind, I think. But most of my work so far has been invested in the main quests, which are varied. Obviously, there's the sniper mission there, which is it's people. One of my favorite encounters from New Vegas Bounties 2 was Charlie Halfcock, and that's the sniper encounter near the Sunset Sarsaparilla factory. A lot of players liked that and thought it was interesting, it was different, and so I tried to harken back to that on some level, but kind of up the difficulty. So that's what you can expect in terms of just pure gameplay. Expect that, but with some nuance, some differences there that'll make it a challenge. But other than that, there are a huge variety of quests that, for instance, you'll be dealing with a kind of a traveling or nomadic raider tribe, and you'll be forced into a moral dilemma in terms of how you deal with them, and also negotiating the status of this tribe with the base commander. And again, I want to emphasize the NCR. This is not an idealized take on them by any means. There are strong feelings, strong prejudice from within the NCR command that you're going to be dealing with, and that's one instance where that really comes up. And then another one of my favorite quests is after that is an interrogation quest, and it's not interrogation in a rear in a secure rear echelon place like McCarran is one thing. In a forward place that's under siege and in contact with the enemy all the time, like Zulu,
interrogation is going to be an entirely different matter, especially when you have an intelligence officer like the guy they have, who is, shall we say, he's an interesting person, and you'll be able to interact with him and take on this mission. But it is not the McCarran interrogation mission. That's to be damn sure. Then there's also several other missions. There are several moral dilemmas, but one in particular that I think will be interesting to see what choice players make. I'm really excited to see how players deal with this moral dilemma, because it will have whatever choice you make, there will be far-reaching consequences, and you won't know necessarily what those consequences will be. You'll have an idea, but that's to me, that's more like real life. You're put in a shitty situation with limited information, and based on that information, you have to make a snap judgment that you're going to have to live with. And people are going to judge you on that decision, maybe not fairly, for the rest of your life. And that's this moral dilemma more than any other in the game, and people will know it when they play. They'll know which one it is. It's going to have it will have huge repercussions for the battle and for the courier potentially down the road, long after they've left Zulu. And I'm really excited about it. And even though it's kind of twisted, I hate to say I'm excited about this really grim dilemma, but I think players will enjoy being. It will be fascinating to see how they deal with that, and I'm looking forward to that. Then there's going to be, there's another mission where you go off and initially it was written to be a diplomatic mission, but in true some guy fashion, it ended up into an action mission. So there you go. I like the joke. Stylistically, I'm like a lobotomized Sam Peckinpah, and sometimes that comes out. And when I was rewriting that, I just said to hell with it. So there's actually a ghoul named Peckinpah in the mod, and that's one of those. I guess I gave away an Easter egg, but that's pretty obvious. So, and I like the character. I think I like him. So there's that. There's a lot of action in terms of just continuous gameplay. I'm still working on when I had paused Zulu to do the inheritance. I was just getting into the main battle, and that's the real. If the characterization side, if Marcellus is the heart of the mod, then on the gameplay side, then this main battle, that's what makes or breaks this mod, because it's the deciding factor, and it's the climax. People want a real battle. They want to feel like they're really under siege if they take the NCR side, and I want to deliver that. I want them to know. I want them to just. This is not the attack on Nelson. This is not the attack on Hoover Dam. You're going to be truly at a disadvantage, and I want the player to feel. Again, some of my influences on this that I pointed to in the forums were like DNB and Foo, Rourke's Drift. I consider those the two extreme ends of the spectrum. In terms of what the player does, how they handle it. If they totally screw it up, it's DNB and Foo. If they do everything right. Then it's Rourke's Drift, and those are the two paradigms. But there's a lot of things that can happen in between, and there are outcomes that are more middle of the road that aren't necessarily ideal, but will reflect possible outcomes based on your performance and the performance of the defenders, and kill ratios and all these other variables that will play into that battle, and the player will have to deal with. Random attacks with the Legion using weaponry that they may not use in other theaters, and that includes things like mortars, that I think should have been in Fallout all along. Mortars are some of the cheapest and most portable, easiest to use small infantry or small unit weapons around. They've been around for ages, and everybody uses them. From the Mujahideen or insurgents to the most advanced military in the world, and mortars are going to be around forever, including post-apocalypse. I think it's just a technical limitations. That's the only reason they haven't been in there with balancing issues. But for the sake of this mod, you will be mortared if you're on the defending side, and you will experience that. And I think that's important because, and that's almost kind of a World War I influence where, if you read All Quiet on the Western Front or Storm of Steel or something like that, you get a picture of, your death is always there. It's always over you, and all it takes is one unlucky shell, and you're red mist. And that can happen, and you're going to grow attached. That's something I want the player to feel. I want them to. You're going to be thrust into this place, and over time you'll develop relationships. Assuming I don't just totally bugger the writing. You'll develop relationships with these other defenders, and have a rapport with them. And what I want the player to feel is know the danger of arbitrary death that they can't control, and they can do every single thing right, do everything they can to save their lives, but even that's not enough sometimes. These people that they care about are going to die, and they're going to die in a gruesome way, most likely. And that's fucking war, and you can't turn back the clock, and the player's going to have to deal with that and deal with the consequences and keep going forward. And at least I hope they do. You can spam reload all you want, but I hope that they go forward and they experience and they play it straight up and take their licks. The player will be able to mitigate the losses, obviously, through cultivating relationships with these characters, and then there are other side quests. Side quests are extremely important in terms of developing the health of the defenders. As just one example, their skills, their morale. Morale is extremely important, and you're going to be able to influence all of those factors for these defenders. But for the most part, there will be the kind of the nameless NPCs, but for the most part, you're going to be fighting this battle with other named characters that you've kind of become familiar with and had interactions with. And I think that it's like with XCOM, these aren't just nameless guys. You get attached to these people, and when you lose them, man, it hits home. And that's something I want to do. And that's because you attack Nelson or you fight on Hoover Dam, you don't know any of these people you're fighting with, other than maybe your companion, if you bring Boone or Raoul or whatever the hell with you. But you don't know these people. You don't really care about them. And I want to change that. I want the player to feel it a little bit. I know that's kind of crazy and ambitious, and and some players will probably just take the psycho route and go in there and kill everybody. I don't know if I'll be able to script that necessarily, but that notwithstanding, I think it'll be if nothing else, a unique opportunity for the player to go in there and get a little taste of this war in another theater, and then come away from it with the courier changed irrevocably on some level, internally and maybe external. Well, I'm not going to do like War Blues and slap perks or something on them, but or make them a cyborg. But internally, it's more of a psychological thing. Where internally they can be changed. That's really up to the player and how they role play it. But the courier, will go into this, with a certain set of expectations and things. And my hope is that they come out, changed on some level. And if you go to war, that's going to happen. It's inevitable, and the people around them will be changed, and the player will have directly influenced them on some level. Even if they all die, you've influenced them. You've influenced the outcome. And on that note, the player, as I've written it, and as I'm working my ass off to implement, the player will be able to take the Legion's side at one point. The real question is at what point, because I don't know if I'll be able to do it to the extent of I put a spell on you, like at McCarran with some of the Legion quests where there's a set of intriguing espionage missions beforehand. That would be ideal, and I'm not ruling that out. But at the very least, there will be a point of divergence where the player can say, oh, by the way, I'm going to go for the Legion. I know that's kind of corny, and that, believe me, it's not going to be like that. But there's going to be a point of divergence where the player will be able to declare for the Legion and go ahead and actually attack the Firebase and help the Legion overtake it. But the mod is clearly leaning towards the NCR, but it is not pro NCR, to be clear. And there are things the NCR does before and after that are, well, you'll see. It's just not. I certainly don't want to give that impression. It is not about the NCR versus Legion. It's about the relationship that you develop with these people as you are put under incredibly awful stress and circumstances. You're going to be deprived of sleep, deprived of supplies, deprived of basic necessities, and you're going to have to endure. That's another thing, is you're going to be cut off in this siege. I want it to feel like an actual siege and not just some scripted thing that the player can predict. There's going to be random events that happen during the siege itself. Some of them that I've written up in the latest version of the notes that could happen in one playthrough and may not happen in another. And those will be some of them are brutal. Some of them are just really really grim. There's no other way to put it. And I'm excited. I know for some players, they associate my work strictly with New Vegas Bounties and with that kind of fun Western. And not the New Vegas Bounties doesn't have some really dark elements in it, but it to me, I always went into it. It is a spaghetti Western. It is silly. It's fun. It's over the top. And Zulu is the first thing I've done that is from the outset. Where I said, this isn't that. It's not frivolous. It's not going to be. That's not to say there isn't humor in it. My God, just go talk to Josie. I mean, that son of a bitch he's insane. But the basic themes within it are something I take very seriously and I feel very strongly about. And it's a form of personal expression. And people talk about video games, whether or not they can be art or not. And for me, I think that this is a wonderful avenue for modding as personal expression for me, because I'm a veteran and these are feelings and experiences I have that I want to express. And some people put it on the page, some people put it in film, and some people have sing a fucking song. Me, I want to make interactive fiction in the Fallout universe. That's how I will express myself for this, for this particular, part of my life. And if people play it and they can get a little insight into that, then I think if that isn't art, then I don't know what the fuck is, and that's that.
Thanks for the interview, James. The Inheritance will be out towards the end of the month, while Firebase Zulu will be available early next year. Thanks for watching, and please let me know what you thought of the interview in the comments, and just to let you know, hopefully I'll be doing some more mod interviews in the future.
Caesar's fate was sealed from the start.